I'm Tom Prince with Western New York Athletics, and you are here for our next edition of the Western New York Athletics Coaches Corner. And I've got some top coaches here in Western New York, led by Jared Brown of Southwestern, Mike Wagner of St. Mary's, and Mark Dalfonso of Lancaster. Some huge programs we're going to discuss today. We're going to discuss the makeup of these programs, as well as some big questions that now affect the high school program, especially from a travel baseball perspective. So, guys, how's everybody doing?
Great, Tom.
Bored.
I agree with you, Mike. I agree. Totally bored.
Really hard.
Well, hopefully this will at least give us a little insight to baseball, keep baseball alive until we get the okay to get back out on those fields. So let's start with question number one. So my first question is, with travel baseball growing and growing right now, you end up having multiple kids playing on different teams throughout the winter, spring, and summer. How do you bring all those kids together as one for their high school team? Jared, let's start out with yourself.
Well, I mean, sometimes that can be very difficult to get the travel guys that have been playing all year long as to some of the guys that are playing winter sports and fall sports that aren't just totally committed to all the travel baseball. But I think at Southwestern they have a really good mesh of playing together as a team. And I think for the 5 or 6 years that I've been coaching varsity, it hasn't been an issue. As far as the travel ball goes, I really encourage these kids to go out. I have Mitchell playing. Well, last year he played for the Junior Thunderwolves, and Nate Johnson also with the travel team, the Junior Thunderwolves. And as of this year, I have Spencer Kane playing for the Southern Tier Regulators, Aiden Malquist playing for the Southern Tier Regulators, and a new transfer that we got in from Jamestown, Calvin Ricker, who's going to be a big part of our program this year as one of our starting pitchers, playing also with the Southern Tier Regulators. So these guys are a really close-knit unit. And everything that's going on right now is really affecting all of us immensely. We had quite the solid core this year. And so, I mean, to answer your question, I don't think that it's that hard to, because those guys in the most part are role models and they're leaders to begin with. Those guys that are playing on those programs. So it's not like they know any more than anyone else. And they're more or less helping the guys that have been playing for hockey championships and whatever else they may have been doing. So it really hasn't been a big deal or a big issue for us in the past couple of years. And I encourage those guys to go out and play on those showcase teams and to do that. Coach Zemecki does a great job.
Okay. Coach Wagner, how about yourself?
You know what? I kind of like the well, for me, we don't have a large program. We're successful, but we don't have a lot of kids. Well, they are mostly 2 or 3 sport athletes, but I, like Coach Brown said, I prefer them to go and play travel ball or organized ball. I've done Legion baseball for many years, and seems like this was before like the Academy Stars, the Titan, all your travel team facilities. This was before that, so I was able to keep my team together. However, and you guys may be in the same position as I am, as long as they're getting coached properly and they're getting the proper coaching, that helps us. That helps me. I don't have to kind of work on certain things, whether it's, a certain mechanic with hitting or pitching. So I do like that. And I do think as long as they're getting coached properly, then that's the key. If they're getting coached by a dad, it's not going to help. So unless the dad knows what he's talking about, Tom.
I was going to say.
But I promote it like for like Mark Lancaster has so many kids. I don't know about like Southwestern. I don't know what you have to pull from, but my kids, when they get to me, they give me 100% for the whole time of the school year. So, we've for whatever reason, they gel and they mesh together because they play against each other in the summer. We make it fun for them. So, for a high school coach maybe who says, hey, I'm not gonna, I don't want you guys playing travel baseball or I don't think that's right. I think they should be able to play travel baseball as long as they're getting coached properly and playing to the level of competition. That makes my job easier when it comes to actually implementing mechanics.
And Mark, how about yourself at Lancaster? You are known for close-knit teams too. So how are you actually bringing them all together as one?
Yeah, I think what happens with the travel teams, as Mike was saying, is that it's a great thing, but it also makes it a little tougher on us with the bigger schools because every kid has been on a travel team that comes to my tryout, and every kid has been that all-star. And then when they come to my tryouts, every kid has been that kid. And it makes for a very difficult situation when you are cutting down to a team because every parent always then calls up and says, well, my kid was an all-star on their travel team. It wasn't like, Mike, when you and I played against each other, you had Legion, you had Triple ABA, and you had Buffalo News Suburban League and Muni. That was it. Now there's a ton. So it is a real problem trying to get these kids to gel when you get them together, when you do finally make your team. What we do is, I'm sure you know about Coach Masters and cross-training athletics. We bring him in and he speaks to our team once a week and talks to them about, the love aspect, the internal aspect of the athlete. And that's how we try and bring all these kids that have been on different travel teams all summer long, trying to bring them together to the one goal that, we want is the sectional championship. And, Mike wants that Monsignor Martin. And congrats again, Mike. That was awesome last year. Awesome. But that's one of the ways that we try and do it. This year is obviously a testing year for that type of thing and bring them together. In fact, after this, we're having a Zoom meeting with their whole team to see where they are. And but it's a tough thing bringing all those kids together. One interesting thing that happens with it is that all these kids are playing on so many different teams in the summer that when we do play Clarence, you play Orchard Park, you play, Waynesville, all the kids know each other. And it's kind of a neat thing when they're playing, step across the foul lines, they're out for blood, but when they get inside the dugouts, it's a good time after the game. So.
Yeah, we saw that when we did the senior all-star game this past year where kids all came together, and you saw the best part was when they took pictures at the end and you saw the Lancaster with the St. Mary's player, with the Orchard Park player, right? All posing together because they played together on other teams. That was phenomenal to see. But also to say is Coach Masters is phenomenal. And that is great to hear that's exactly was a tool that you're using to help actually make that team come together. What a great tool there. And I've seen him speak to other teams and know that he is a huge asset for teams to be able to bring in. So it's something other coaches could learn from there.
He's a big part, I believe, of our success that we've had is Coach Masters and how he's taught me and taught our players. And it really has brought the kids together in a huge group of people that we have at Lancaster.
That's great. So my next question I have for you guys is you all have big programs right now. A lot of you have players that are going to be going and playing on to the next level, including the Division I level. What do you do to help your players actually be seen by the college coaches? Coach Wagner, let's start out with yourself.
Well, for me, I think once you start having success, that college coaches will find you. I see, and you use the example of these showcase teams and all these players traveling all over the place. And then they end up going to ECC or Niagara Community College or some local college. So for me, it's just us getting exposure. We've had years and years of success as well as as the other coaches as well, Coach Brown, Coach Dalfonso, they come and find you. And that's what I tell a lot of the players. I say, you're going to go to a showcase down in, 5 states away and spend $2,000 for what? I mean, for me, I think the exposure that the high school level brings is, locally, obviously. Nobody's coming from, Virginia Tech or Vanderbilt to Buffalo to scout kids. The local colleges, ECC, Niagara Community College, a JUCO college is a good start for young players who may be 17 when they graduate and they want to go and play out of state. And then what happens? They come home because they're homesick. So for me, it's just, if your team is good and you're good, you're going to get noticed. And that's how we pretty much do it. And then once you develop a reputation with college coaches, they come and see you. And they always, Bob Carnavelli, Joe Bow, Klingersmith, whether it's Canisius, Niagara, Geneseo, Fredonia, St. John Fisher. Once you develop a relationship with these people, they keep in contact. And that's from building through success.
Okay. Sorry guys, we just had somebody try to come in now, and I don't know what happened here.
That's actually one of my friends, I think.
Oh, okay.
So there he is. I don't know if he's still there. Keith, are you there? All right.
Got it. All right, perfect. Okay. So real quick, let's get right now. So Coach Dalfonso, talk about the same thing. So what do you do to help those kids be seen by the college coaches? How does it work for you?
I think Mike brought up a great point. It kind of snowballs. It's one of those things where if you're being successful, and that's what we are all trying to do with all our programs, is be successful, that is the best way to help your kid make it to the next level. Because with success, I mean, let's face it, comes exposure. And it kind of snowballs with the people that we've had in the program in the past, like an LG. I mean, other guys on a perfect example is scouts were there. Lee Saris from Cincinnati was there watching LG. It was against Clarence. And I had another kid that was pitching, and that pitcher was not going to go to college. He was going to college, but not for baseball. And he wound up impressing him so much that his good friend was, I can't think of his name, St. Bonaventure's head coach. I don't know. He called him up and said, "Hey, you need to take a look at this kid." And that boy, Joe Dombrowski, wound up going to play baseball and pitch at Bonnie's. He only lasted there a year. I think Division I was a little bit too high for his level, but he's now in a college in Pennsylvania playing. So as Mike said, it does snowball upon itself. It breeds upon itself. I mean, I know you guys probably get those flyers from all the coaches all the time in your emails. Fill them out. Who do you think is interested? I don't do those. Usually your kid has an idea of where he wants to go, and we all kind of have a general idea of what level we think he could be successful at. And then we steer him into the local directions with the occasional exceptional kid like a LG or a Max Giordano or those type of kids.
And Coach Brown, how about yourself?
So I think both coaches hit the nail on the head. With success, you're going to be found. Growing up myself, I had a lot of recruits, and I was just too small to perform at the D2, D1 level as a pitcher. Being 5'10", that just wasn't – I didn't throw hard enough. I located pitches, but these kids will be sought after with success. And you don't need to go out and go to the showcase and do that. If you're on a winning team and you go on and you play for Far West Regionals or whatever it may be, you are going to be looked at and you are going to be on the radar. As both coaches were saying, that's just the way it is. You'll be recognized in the state. You'll be recognized in Western New York. And as far as it goes for me as trying to help them out, it's difficult because I'm not a teacher and I'm not at the school all the time. So I do what I can reaching out. and I went to this a little earlier with the JUCO coaching segment you did earlier in the week. You shouldn't frown upon sending somebody where you think that they're going to succeed and elevate their play. That's a great route to go. If you're not a D1 player, you're going to succeed at JUCO level, and you may end up in that D1 level. But that's kind of the route we're going. I'm just trying to steer these kids and get the best out of them and steer them in the right direction.
Fair enough. Okay, now let's get into the makeup of these teams. This is the fun part, right? Now we get to talk about the teams and exactly what you're going to be bringing, hopefully, to the field. Fingers crossed that we're still going to get some resemblance of a team out there to be able to play some games, even if it's conference play is all that we're hoping for. So, Coach Dalfonso, let's talk about Lancaster first, a perennial powerhouse here in Western New York. You know they will be constantly competing for an ECIC-1 division crown as well as a AA crown. You always will have a team that's going to be right there in the mix. So let's talk about, you will be led by a Division I player yourself. Also, you know you've got a 3-sport athlete in your a second catcher that's out there. You have multiple kids that we're going to be talking about. Let's talk about the makeup of Lancaster.
Yeah, we're this year we're comprised of 7 seniors, 9 juniors, and 3 sophomores. And the 3 sophomores were all slated to be starters, otherwise they wouldn't take them up. But you know, the guy that we're all looking at to have another big year is, you know, Nick Castellana, who, you know, obviously has a full ride going to Niagara. And then the other catcher that we have that is outstanding, too bad we can't play with 2 catchers, is you know, Ryan Mansell. We have some kids that are ready to step up and pitcher. We don't have that pitcher. We're still waiting for our first 90-mile-an-hour thrower. We'd love to have that, as all of us have. You know, I love watching Coach Smith when he had Armstrong. He would sit in the dugout with his legs crossed and say, "Okay, guys, let's get 1 run today." You know, we're still waiting for that 90-mile-an-hour thrower. So we don't have that, but we're a young team, and I mean, I just hope that we can salvage something out of this whole mess that we got going on right now in the world and in the country. But we're excited about the young kids coming up, and some of the kids that hopefully we're going to step up this year. One of them that you guys probably don't know about is Ben Farrell. Last year he was slated to be one of our left-handed better pitchers, if not the best left-hander we had in our lineup. And in Florida, he was playing center field. He ran into our right fielder on a communication error, and it was one of the ugliest collisions I've ever seen. He landed straight on his head. I thought, you know, it was going to be a really bad outcome. Well, thank God it was only a concussion, and he was out for like 3 weeks. But when he came back, he just never was the same. And he's been working hard all year long, and, you know, he was ready. He was fired up, ready to go for this season. And I just hope that we can give him one, because he really lost last year's. So that's kind of where we are. We don't have any all-stars like an LG or an Armstrong or a Max this year, but we do have a Castellana and a few other ones. Any
of those few other ones you want to tell us about, Coach?
Well, I mean, you know, we have like Trevor Reformat. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a basketball player and volleyball player. Basketball, in fact, you know, they just won the sectional final. And in fact, he wound up putting in a very important shot. He's a kid that things can go wrong for him, but he finds a way. He was having an absolute, not a very good game in the finals basketball. And at the end of the game, he wound up with the ball in his hands to shoot the 3-pointer to put the nail in the coffin. And he wound up making the shot. And that's the kind of player he is. He's like I had him slated as my shortstop. We had some other kids just trying to go down my list here, because it's so new. I had a couple, so like the 3 sophomores that we had, one of them was probably going to play the other middle infield spot. Another one of the sophomores is just really swings a really nice bat. Don't know exactly where I was going to fit him in the field, but you guys know that if the kid's hitting, you'll find a spot for him to play in the field. You'll find somewhere first, third, whatever. But that's, you know, like I said, there's no real big names. I know there's maybe one more I'll talk about is His name is Jared Volker. We called him up last year as a sophomore to pitch for us, and he pitched against Frontier, who wound up being the sectional champion. And he shut them down as a sophomore last year for 6 innings. We were very excited to continue using him last year, but unfortunately he hurt his arm. And he's been working hard all year and coming back. And we were expecting really big things from him on the mound as a junior this year.
Great. Well, and again, I'm hoping we get a chance to see them. No doubt that Lancaster's going to be a tough team out there in a very crowded ECIC1 division, where we're hearing there's a 90-mile-an-hour thrower right now happening in that division as we speak. And we're going to
at Frontier, right?
Yes, we're going to be talking to them on Monday. So
absolutely,
they'll be the next one we're going to hear from. But let's go over to Southwestern and Coach Brown. Coach Brown, you're going to be led by one of the top pitchers in the area who is committed to go to UConn at this point. You've also alluded to a transfer coming in that's going to be big for your team and that pitching staff. You're going to be strong on the mound this year going into the season. Let's talk about the makeup of Southwestern.
Yeah, so this was by far the strongest and deepest team that I've had. Considering in 2018 I lost my leading hitter and one of my best pitchers, Cole Snyder, to Rutgers his senior season. So it's kind of like a bang bang effect for us this year, not being on the field. But this was the deepest pitching staff that I've had, the strongest team that we've had in quite a while. Mitchell, obviously a UConn commit. We've been in the gym for quite a while, been throwing a lot of bullpens. He's already up to 88, 89, touched 90 a couple of times, but I mean, we're not even in our prime right now. And that doesn't take anything away from Aiden Kennedy, who I brought up in 8th grade, who's now a sophomore, who's given us at least 30, 35 innings a year. Nate Johnson was also going to be a key contributor to the mound. And the transfer Calvin Ricker, who took the 13 to 15 Jamestown All-Stars deep in their tournament. So all of those guys, in my perspective, could have been 1 or 2s on a lot of teams. But we were a very deep team. We had no seniors that left last year. So we returned our entire squad and gained 2 guys that were transfers. Austin Rott was a transfer from Silver Creek, and Calvin was a transfer from Jamestown. So it was a very promising outlook, especially getting outside and not spending much time in the gym besides in the wintertime, doing hitting and bullpens and that type of stuff. Coming out and being with the weather as nice as it was, getting right out there and getting right at it. We were ready to go. With the schedule that we had this year, I tried to schedule as many tough non-league games as possible, and was really looking forward to the Maryvale and the Allegheny Limestone that knocked us out last year in the semifinals, and whoever it may be. I tried to schedule the toughest teams we could for non-leaguers, besides playing in a very competitive CCAA with Fredonia and Dunkirk and Faulkner. And so right now it's kind of frustrating, but there's nothing that we can do, and we can just pray that the good Lord's going to give us time on the ball field.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we were all dying to see that matchup. We were hoping to see a Maryvale Southwestern matchup and see if Pasquarello was going to actually go head-to-head with Condor Desiderio was going to be the big matchup right there. And then for the 2 other coaches, they were also a part of that day where we were going to see Lancaster take on Canisius to finish that one off. Wow, that would have been a matchup. And then St. Mary's was going to go head-to-head with Hamburg. To see those 2 pitching staffs go head-to-head was going to be phenomenal, and really wish that we were going to be able to see that day happen. Even though it hasn't been officially canceled yet, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get that in because it would be all non-league games. But
Right.
you never know. That's why we haven't officially said what was going to.
Yeah, that's right. Say
But,
postponed, Tom.
Exactly. It's officially postponed. You got it. So now we're going to go off to St. Mary's. You're defending Monsignor Martin champions. Coach Wagner, you are bringing back a lot from last year's base, including one of your players that were up for the Player of the Year this past year with with our cup that we actually talk about, the Colt Boys Barrows Cup that names the Player of the Year. You had a finalist that will be back. You've also got a huge base of players that are going to be coming back. Let's talk about the makeup of St. Mary's.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, most of our team is underclassmen. For the most part, we have two seniors that are our key guys. Chris Nino is our starting catcher. He'll be going to Niagara Community College. He's a solid player, real good player. He's two-time all Catholic. Luke Zabluski is another player who he's just a natural athlete. He's actually going to Canisius for soccer. Those are my, and then Brandon Walsh is my pitcher as well. So those three are kind of my senior key guys, but I have eight juniors that carried us last year who were sophomores. So we have those Trent Rumley, Brandon Thome, Tyshawn Johnson, Tyler Curl. These guys, they've been through it. They've been through the battlefield, so they know what it takes to. They were chomping at the bit this year. They know their teams are going to be coming after them. And I told them, I said, you guys, you're the hunted now. Teams are going to want to come and get you. And we've always had that. I always try to institute that, because you're obviously, and Mark, and I'm not sure, Coach Brown, how the competition is in your level, but Mark, you're facing Orchard Park, Williamsville North, Clarence. You're always going to face a lot of kids in school, a lot of large schools. For us, Canisius, Joe's, Franny's, what else can you say? They have large programs. We just do our best to compete. I try to do the best as far as, again, success breeds bringing kids in. So these 7, 8 kids that we have as juniors now, I was looking forward to it this year, really, because, next year they'll be seniors, which, they're sad, they're mad, but I said, hey, you got a championship under your belt. So, it's not the worst thing in the world. There's a lot of problems in the world right now. Let's just try and pray for everybody that needs help, and let's just try and get through this. If the season happens, it doesn't. It does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So for me, I really look good for the next 2 years, especially next year, because Rumley and all those guys, Rumley's probably going to go to Canisius. He's a really good player. Tyshawn Johnson, who actually came from Lancaster, is a left-handed pitcher who can throw it through the backstop, and a lot of times he does throw it through the backstop, so we got to find a way to get him to throw it. But Walsh is our starter. Taylor, another good player. But I actually only have 12 on my roster for seniors this year. But we have a nice freshman group coming in as well. But again, it's we were there. Everybody's disappointed. Everybody is. So we're not alone.
Well, guys, that was the end of my questions right there. I thank you so much for joining me on the Western New York Athletic Coaches Corner. Let's hope we get a chance to see each of you guys real soon out on the fields. Let's keep fingers crossed that there's some sort of resemblance of a season there. But again, thank you so much for joining me, Bill, to talk about your teams and giving us some insight into some high school baseball.
Sounds good, Tom.
Great, Tom. Thanks for all you do, too, for Western New York athletics, especially baseball.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tom.